All right, let's talk NBA with JVT. Right now, Jonathan Von Tobel of VSiN joins us. JVT, what the hell happened to the Lakers in the third quarter? I'm not surprised that LeBron's scoring slowed down, the Lakers' offense slowed down, because that 73-point first half was an outlier. But 36-16 in the third quarter?
Yeah, look, I think this is kind of what we expected. I was watching it this first half, and I was like, all right, here we go. Like, the Lakers, namely LeBron, are going to give you the best shot so they don't get swept. But ultimately, the deeper and the better team is probably going to come out here and eventually pull away. And I think that's what we're starting to see right now. So I'm hoping that's the case. I'm on Denver money line for a second consecutive game, guys. So I'm hoping they can close this thing out, win this thing. I'll tell you this. If Tristan Thompson is getting isolation post-ups in the year of our Lord 2023, you're kind of up against it as a team, and that's exactly what the Los Angeles Lakers are rolling out there here in this third quarter.
Yeah, they give him the halftime interview with Lisa Salters, and, first time somebody from sports has interviewed him and not from E! or TMZ in probably several years. But, yeah, John, not a lot of surprises necessarily that Denver has come back, at least, and made a game of it, based on how Michael Malone was acting at the end of the half with all the calls against him. But Mark Jackson was clearly surprised, mentioning that, wow, Jokic just passed Wilt. Apparently, this is the first time Mark Jackson has watched Nikola Jokic play.
Yeah, well, he didn't vote for him for MVP, right? He didn't have it on his ballot. Remember, he was the one guy that didn't have him on the top five. So it might be as a surprise to Mark Jackson that Nikola Jokic is pretty good at basketball. And look, I think to a certain extent, guys, we shouldn't kill Mark Jackson. He's not the only guy. I think the market has kind of slept on this Denver Nuggets team. They were about, a $4 favorite, $5 favorite only against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And they end that series very quickly. They're an underdog against the Phoenix Suns. They end that series in 6. And then here they are, what they closed, $1.50 before the series began, $1.45, depending on where you shop. And they could end up sweeping the Los Angeles Lakers. So, Wes, to your point, and not only Mark Jackson, but the betting market has slept on how good this Denver Nuggets team is, how good Nikola Jokic is. And it does put the conversation around MVP this past regular season a little bit differently. And frankly, I think for some people, you look a little ridiculous when you're talking about some of the discourse that was around Nikola Jokic when he was going for what could have been a third consecutive MVP.
Yeah, I was really stunned that the Nuggets were actually series underdogs to the Phoenix Suns. Yep. I had to play that one. Nuggets 3.5-point dogs tonight, trailed by 15 at the half, and right now lead by 3 with we're barely into the fourth quarter here.
Yep.
Tristan Thompson with the feed from LeBron and the dunk, but he could not convert the 3-point play. JVT, looking ahead to the finals, it's going to be the Nuggets out of the West. If it's Nuggets Heat or Nuggets Celtics, what do you think a series price would be for the NBA Finals? How big of favorites would the Nuggets be, let's say, against the Miami Heat?
So I'm thinking my official guess has been like minus 200 for the Nuggets, Youmans in the NBA Finals over the Miami Heat. I think the Miami Heat at this point have deserved a pretty good upgrade in terms of their power rating by the time we've gotten to the NBA Finals. And I think that Denver, there's still some market trepidation with really supporting this team. So, I've been asked this a couple of times. My official guess has been minus 200. Now, for the improbable scenario that you laid out in terms of the other team, if the Celtics come back from a 3-0 deficit, they will be favored over the Denver Nuggets because that'll just confirm a lot of people, including me, their thoughts about what the Boston Celtics can be. So in the improbable event that actually happens, the Celtics, I think, would probably, you flip that price. I think they'd be about a $2 favorite or so over the Denver Nuggets.
One of the reasons it looks like we were seeing a little more Tristan Thompson run, Darvin Ham is just having him be the goon on Jokic. He's just kind of pounding him a little bit all over the floor, and that's why you're seeing him play so much. But, John, to tomorrow's game really quickly, Miami Heat now finally the favorites in a game over the Boston Celtics. They are 1.5-point favorites, and as bad as Boston has looked, could you only bet Boston in this spot tomorrow? Because now everybody's been all over Boston, and rightfully so, that they look like they threw in the towel and kind of quit and maybe have quit on Joe Mazzulla. That's been the talk of all the hot take shows today. What are you doing for tomorrow's game, if anything?
So I haven't bet anything yet, Wes, but you're right. So look, the way I've put it over the last couple of days, as somebody who, as Matt knows, who bet the Celtics at minus 2.5 games in this series, the last 2 games, I have been betting Miami sides. Why? Because the market, as I put it, has tied my hands. If you're going to give me 10 in game 2 with Miami, or you're going to give me 4.5 in game 3 back in Miami, I've got no choice but to bet the Miami Heat. And now, as you're pointing out, Wes, now it's flipped. Now we're talking about a near 6-point adjustment from where this line was just the last game to where we're at here with Miami. There might be some out there who have been power rating Miami at this strong the whole way, so maybe this is the accurate number. But for me, it would be, to use your phrase, Boston or pass here, given the adjustment. Now the market has finally come around and snapped back in a really big way. So if you're anybody out there like Matt, and I'm not sure I haven't talked to you, Wes, if you're somebody who has really rode Miami here throughout the series or the last couple of rounds, then this is one where now I think you wash your hands of it and you're like, all right, I have soaked all of this, all that I can. I've squeezed all the juice out of this as much as I can. Now the market has finally made a tangible adjustment, and the only way to go here is going to be Boston. And look, we've seen this market move late in some of these games. I wouldn't be surprised, Wes, if this thing closes 2.5, maybe even 3, because the market's going to be so in on Miami to end this thing, given how bad Boston has looked the last couple of games. So yes, I would agree with that phrase. I think it's Boston or pass if you haven't bet it.
Yeah, I'm pro Miami Heat, but I'm not going to touch the Heat here in Game 4. Not going to happen. I agree with everything you said there. Follow him on Twitter at MeJVT. Listen to the Hardwood Handicappers podcast. And JVT, sometimes I think it might be an advantage. I might be in a position where I have an advantage that I'm not carrying the baggage of a lot of things I saw during the regular season with these teams. I first started watching NBA games, really all the games from start to finish, when the college basketball season was over. So I didn't really go into the playoffs thinking, well, the Miami Heat were the worst spread team in the NBA, or the Boston Celtics defensive efficiency numbers are off the charts and they're the second best defense in the NBA. What I've been watching is a Miami Heat team that I think has been really underrated by a lot of people, and a Celtics team that, frankly, I think that defensive efficiency rating lies. I don't see that type of defense from this Boston team. I think the defense has really deteriorated.
Well, and I mean, Matt, to your point, since the postseasons began, specifically since Game 3 of their series with Atlanta, they've been the third worst defensive team in the postseason. Mm-hmm. So that defensive rating's been telling you the truth, right? That this is what Boston has been, and it does open the door on an interesting conversation. And there's been some extremes of this, which is a lot of people have been like, throw out the regular season. Regular season doesn't matter. And I would say, well, it does matter to a certain extent. And my rebuttal has been, it's a very simple one, but regular season told us the Denver Nuggets were the best team in the Western Conference. And look at them right now with the lead in a late in the game, potentially closing out the Los Angeles Lakers in 4. So there is a value to the regular season, but some teams, there is an unquantifiable nature, as I put it, in terms of teams being able to perform. And we've seen little cracks here with Boston. There were stretches throughout the regular season where they were very inconsistent, where their offense was very reliant on three-point shooting, where their defense fell off. But it came in random stretches throughout the season. So you think, well, you know what? Let's chalk it up to the ebbs and flows of a regular season, in which it's kind of hard, right? We're playing 4 games, haven't been home in a week, whatever it is. Maybe that's kind of what you're seeing here. But I think now, as you kind of zoom out and look at what's happened with Boston, I mean, this is why I think Mazzulla deserves some blame, Matt. But it's also these players, a lot of the same things that have been plaguing them in this series have plagued them going back to last year, years in the past. Haven't been able to close out games. Offense has fallen off in these fourth quarters. Defense is inconsistent. Jason Tatum disappearing. Jaylen Brown forgetting to dribble. Like, all of these things we've seen before. It's a big reason why they lost the series last year to the Golden State Warriors. So I think overall, Matt, to your point, I think there's still a value in watching the regular season. I can point to many things, but there is something in looking at a team like Miami and thinking, okay, maybe there's something a little bit more that we could dig into. But I would also say, I mean, you talk about getting into the postseason. Remember, they got smoked by Atlanta in the play-in, and they needed a 12-0 run to close out Chicago in the second play-in just to get in. And then here they are, 1 win away from the NBA Finals. It's absolutely wild.
We sat here and watched it, Wes. We also watched the Lakers look pretty bad in the play-in, too.
Yeah.
And the Lakers turned things on after that. Jaylen Brown, I think, 2 for 20 from 3 in this series. And JVT, we're going to have to wrap this up. Time flies here, but the Celtics haven't shot it that well from 3. And I go back to the end of Game 2. Had wide open looks from 3 in the last 2 minutes, I think, by Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford, and all 3 guys missed. Those were wide open looks, and this team's just not shooting it well enough from 3.
Yeah, and look, Mazzulla has really gone into the analytics age, which is threes, layups, get to the free throw line. And when you're relying on that, it looks really good. You get a lot of blowouts, but then also, if those shots aren't falling, you get some of these disjointed offensive efforts, and that's exactly what we've seen from the Boston Celtics in this postseason.
Yeah, and then a team throws a zone at you, and all of a sudden you don't know what to do, and that's what we've seen out of Boston.
Well, that's why I thought this series price, JVT, was way out of whack because of the coaching mismatch. I'm not sure how you put a number on that, but Eric Spoelstra is about as good as it gets right now, and Mazzulla's a rookie. A quick thought here, final 15 seconds. If the Celtics lose, gets swept out or losing 5 games, you think they have to make a coaching change to salvage this thing?
I don't think they would have to, but I think you're definitely thinking about changing something, whether it's the roster or whether it's Missoula.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.